Hello, everyone. Susan Gerbic from Psychics Explained. I have a story I think I should tell you, or I want to tell you. It. I've been doing this investigation into psychic mediums for a long time, since about 2013 is when I did my first sting. So that's 12 years ago, because it was I think in the summer of 2013. Yeah, that would be right. So I've got a lot of stories. There's a lot of things that have happened. And I realized today I was asked a question by William on our YouTube channel, who was asking a question, a comment under the video that I just did with Evelyn that was looking at Matt Fraser. And William asked, do you ever talk to people who are believers, and what happened with that? What did they say? So I left him quite a long post, so you guys can check that out. And I'm recording this on, what day is this? January 31st, 2026. So it'd be the video that I uploaded on the 30th of 2026 of January. And I gave him a link to an article that I wrote called Thomas John and the Believers. And it talks about a story about a man named Ken. I'm pretty sure I have a video on Ken somewhere here. If not, I'll have to tell you that story too, because that really was heartbreaking. And I have lots of screenshots, and I had a conversation with Ken, and Ken has since died, because I've checked in on him over the years since I had a conversation with him several times. So I now know he's died. Well, all right. So this might take me a few minutes. The audio, I went to go try to find the video for it. And the video I made is at least 5 years old, and I didn't quite have the skills I have now with the technology for blurring and that kind of thing. So the audio is terrific. The screen of the is ridiculous. So I think I'm just going to play you audio. Maybe I'll show you briefly a little video, but it goes on for quite a while. But I'm going to set this up, and hopefully you find this fascinating. It's heartbreaking. And this is Thomas John and Suzanne Northrop. Now, Suzanne Northrop's a cold reader. She goes way back. I think we have a playlist of some things on my channel, some videos of hers. I'm hoping to do a little more investigation on her, but really she's nobody nowadays. She was a big kind of deal back in the day. My partner, Mark Edward, had done some investigative work on her with the skeptic group in Los Angeles, the Skeptic Society with Michael Shermer back in the day. And there's video of him, going at it. So it's quite interesting. Mark had, that was like a person who is a big name. Now she's just, she's holding on to every ounce of fame she once had, trying to be relevant. Very sad. And anyway, I'm probably going to revisit Suzanne Northup eventually. But as I said, she's not a priority because she's not really getting any names or getting any bookings that much. Only when Thomas John kind of puts her on. Thomas John, I have busted a zillion times, even in the New York Times. Thomas John is a hot reader. Thomas John is one of the ultimate grief vampires. He is really atrocious in the level of people who are just the worst of people. I mean, Sylvia Browne and Thomas John are like neck and neck as being the people who you would say are the most hideous, horrible grief vampires out there. So Thomas John is hot reading. All right, so let me set this up. Let me see how I'm going to do this so it makes sense. Now, back at least 5-6 years ago, during the COVID years, lockdown years, mediums really went to gallery readings on Zoom. That became the place to go to continue making grifting on people, vulnerable people. And during the lockdown, there was an awful lot of lonely people, mostly women. They were they didn't get to say goodbye to their loved ones, their family, because they were dying, not necessarily of COVID, but of other elements that they had to go to the hospital for whatever reasons. And they didn't really get to visit them because remember, the hospitals were overrun. You just couldn't go in. We didn't have vaccines, and it was just a mess. So a lot of grief. And then when the person died, they weren't able to really grieve like traditionally they had, bringing the family together and having funerals and wakes and those kinds of things. It was, if you got to have a funeral at a funeral home, it would be like 6 people. It was, and you weren't supposed to be mingling at people's houses. People did, but it was a very hard time for people, especially a lot of these widowed mothers, widowed wives, that their husband died of, kidney disease or cancer or of COVID and other things. So they didn't really get to grieve like they normally would. All right. So Thomas John and Suzanne Northrop would do these joint gallery readings together. And I think they charge about $27, something like that, which is not a lot of money, but to some people, that is a lot of money. That $27 to some people who are on a fixed income, it can be quite a bit of money. It's like, you know, possibly not buying your medications or not being able to have that treat that you have. Maybe you can't buy coffee, even in the can, a coffee can, things you have to put up with to not do because you're going to a psychic medium. And if you go to a psychic medium once, you're probably going to go multiple times. So it can be quite a financial issue. But what I'm going to show you is something far worse than money. So, people are always bringing up money. How much did it cost? How much did it cost? These people are getting money out of these people. It is so much more than that. I mean, on the list of things, priorities of things, the harm that happens to people who go to these really predatory mediums, the money is low on the list of things that can happen to these people who get readings. So in Thomas John's case, and Suzanne Northrop, they have this thing, and we watched a bunch of their events, and I recorded all of them. And for some strange reason, I can't find the video, except I can find the video where I've blurred everybody out but Thomas John and Suzanne, and they're on this video. It looks really silly. I'll show you. But like I said, the audio is clear, and maybe I have the video somewhere, but it doesn't really matter because I wouldn't have wanted to show the other people on the screen anyway. They're appearing on Zoom. Their names are right there. And the names are, the people Thomas John calls on are Googleable. I mean, they're not like Mary Smith or 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 George Jones or something like that. They are somebody who has a name that's a good, nice, Googleable name that you're going to find in an obituary, not them personally, but their family, and also find their social media. It's pretty darn easy. I do it all the time. My team has done it all the time. It takes minutes, if not less. So we were watching this event. We were just watching, and the team of people I had, we were using Facebook Messenger, and we're just contacting each other. We're watching the event happen live. And as it's happening, Thomas John's style is, when he's working with another medium, is they rotate. Thomas John, Suzanne, Thomas John, Suzanne. So that gives him about 10 minutes to be able to find somebody's name on the screen who has a nice Googleable name. And then he goes and he's able to do a Google search on them. Again, social media, go through their stuff, look and see if they're mentioned in somebody's obituary. Trust me, it's very easy to find people who have unusual names, especially if you can get a maiden name. Oh my gosh, a woman who hyphenates her name. Or on Facebook, I'm not so sure about the other social medias, but when you look at the URL for a person's Facebook thing, sometimes it has their name in there. I know mine does in the search, because when you first make the Facebook page account, you'll make the account with your name. Some people do. And then you change your name on the account later, but the name is still up there in the URL. So we've seen people who have the URL with the maiden name, and then eventually they change it to their married name because they get married, but they've had their account that long. So just a little tip there. That's another way of finding out a maiden name. Once you have a maiden name and a married name and a first name, you're gold on finding a a obituary where it mentions you in there. And then once you have an obituary of somebody, you got a whole family tree to rely on. And sometimes you have personal details like, did they like to hunt and fish? Did they like, did they have a dog and the dog's name? And then if you look at the comments under the obituary, you'll find people saying, oh my gosh, he was my favorite doctor. And telling a personal story about them, or he was the vet that we used to go to, or remember him in high school and how we went to the prom together, or whatever. You see these posts underneath this. Hot reading's my thing. Okay. Hot reading is really my expertise. Very few people hot read. So Suzanne cold reads. And oh my gosh, like I said, watch the videos I have on her. She's just something else. She is just, wow, predictable. So while she's doing her thing with somebody, Thomas John is able to take a few minutes and go find who he's going to call in next. Suzanne always does this too. Whenever Thomas John starts talking, Suzanne interrupts saying, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. It's cold reading, and it's almost always completely wrong. I mean, I can't remember her ever getting anything right, but it's just bizarre stuff. But she's like, I'm getting something too. Thomas, you're getting it. I'm getting this. And I'll show you, I'll let you hear what she says. It's just traditional Suzanne Northrop stuff. So Thomas John has a couple different methods. Now, each of these mediums does colder reading, hot reading, a little different from each other. They're gimmick. So what Thomas John does, and a lot of mediums I've seen do this, is they know who their target is. They already know who they're going to contact. And they see them on the screen, but they don't want to give it away that they're going to hot read. They don't want it to make it so obvious. And they also want the other people on the screen to feel like, I'm here too. And he sees me, and I'm going to give him some kind of, it's going to be kind of nice. I'll get pulled up and he'll talk to me for a minute, and then he's going to kick me to the side. That's what ends up happening. Just kind of like Matt Fraser does, but Matt Fraser's cold reading. But Matt Fraser gets a couple no's, you're gone. So trying not to digress. Okay, so Thomas John will do this thing where he has two tactics. One is he goes directly to a person and says, I'm getting, you're calling, you're so-and-so, and your father's here, and your father's telling me this, and your brother's name is Fred, and you had a dog named George. And he goes right to the person and he does that. That's one tactic he uses with hot reading. He does that. And then every other reading, he does this other thing where he, just to make it look random, he gives a scenario. And you'll hear the scenario, but let me give you an example. I'm getting a woman who died probably in her 20s, who had a child, and the child also died. And while she was giving birth, she died while giving birth. And the child was a little baby boy. And there was a house with a red door that you guys lived in. And there was somebody named Samantha. Who does that apply to? So it sounds very specific. It is specific because they know exactly who they're looking for. They've already got the scenario. This isn't cold reading. They have info, and they're just kind of embellishing it a little bit. And so he looks on the screen, and what they do is they usually keep everybody muted. And there's a facilitator, a coordinator of the group who's running the whole thing, who's handling the chat and, making sure that people have tickets when they get in, and keeping everybody muted and unmuting them and pinning the person, that kind of person. So the sitters, and there's 50, who knows how many people, and they're texting in the chat of the gallery reading for the Zoom session, and they're all trying to claim that person, because even though it's very specific with the scenario I just gave you, people will try to make it fit their family members because they badly need this reading and they're motivated. And then think about how many people and people who vaguely know, and once we're able to use our grandparents and our, people who've died who we don't know very well, we kind of try to fit that story. You would say, my grandmother had a sister who the story was that she died in childbirth. And yes, there was a little boy. And yeah, I think the family had a red door. That must be me. So they try to make it fit. But now remember, Thomas John knows who he's calling on. He knows already. So we're watching this, and we're not saying anything, we're not involved in any way, we're just watching, but it's live. And as we're watching it, we're texting each other back and forth on Messenger. We're saying, oh, here comes this woman he's calling on me. He's calling on this person who has a scenario. You'll get to hear it. And Thomas John often pulls up the wrong person, the person he knows he's not going to give a reading to. And he asks them a few questions, and it's wrong because it's not specifically the person he's looking for. He already knows who he's going to look for. And then he's like throwing them a bone. He's like, it's not you. And then finally, the person will come on, and you'll see sometimes the psychic, somebody else will try, like a second person will try to claim the reading. And the medium who knows who they're calling on will go, no, not that one. I think it's this one. It's because they know which one it is, and they don't want to spend all day on that person and, going through a scenario. Though I've seen sometimes they go through one wrong person, the next wrong person before they get to the one they really wanted to hit on. Again, it makes the people feel like, I almost got a reading, so I will come back to his next reading. That kind of thing. But what it tells you is how vague these things really do seem, because so many people out of maybe 50 people on the Zoom screen, it applies to. It's very common. So we're watching this, and her name is on the Zoom screen, and her name is Brenda. I'm going to say that because it's already said many times, but I'm not going to tell you her last name, and that it is something that we were able to find her social media immediately. So we're watching, and I'm going to play this, and you're going to hear how sad this gets and the emotion that happens from Brenda and how it escalates. And we are watching this, and as we're doing this, we're on her social media, and the things he's saying, we're finding on her social media in real time. So we can see what's happening, and we're just like, wow, that's so sad. And I wish I could reach out to her, but we don't. The policy that we have, at least I have, ethically, I don't reach out to people who have had readings from, especially their child, unless it's like a news agency or something, and they should know better. They have a responsibility to inform the public. And usually if I do reach out to somebody, it's like trying to allow them to save face. Like, oh, you had this reading the other day. I saw that happen. Wow, that was something else. But I'm sure you have figured out by now that he just looked at your social media, right? You knew that. And I'm doing it to allow them to save face. And I always write it so they have time to think about it. And then I send them the screenshots of what happened. Anyway, so you can look at William's comment on the January 30th video, that Matt Fraser video that's on here. Should be right underneath this video. So we don't approach these people because it's just too heartbreaking to them. But what happened is, we really wanted to reach this woman, but we didn't. It was Christmas time, and must have been 2021, something like that. I think it was 2021, Christmas 2021. So the ending to this is a surprise, and I'm not going to let you see it right now, but I will tell you what it is. So stay tuned. Please leave me comments, especially as I go through the reading. And I'd love to see what you guys have to say as the story is unfolding. I don't even want to hint at what happens at the end. And then there's even aftermath after that. So let me play this. And I think I've set you up for everything. So it's not going to be super, I don't think I need to break in very much. But I'm going to let you know it does take a little bit to get through this because the reading is, how long is this thing? I'm going to break it up into little chunks. It's almost 17 minutes, but I'm going to break it up into chunks so it isn't constantly having to listen to this man's voice. I guess I could show you the video. I have never shown this video or released this audio before, apparently, because it's sitting on one of my channels, and it is unlisted. Let's see if I can figure out how to do it so that I think it'd be better if I went into my files instead of trying to show you from this YouTube. Okay. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. So what you're going to see on the screen is a bunch of blur, but it's just the software I used at the time, because I had people at the top I wanted to blur and people at the bottom I wanted to blur. The software I used, and I still have, doesn't allow me to blur sections. I had to blur multiple times, and I really didn't want these people's names revealed. So what you're going to see on the screen is Thomas John, and then the Stephanie, who I believe is his sister, and she's the person controlling, who's coming in and going on the Zoom call. And then it's Suzanne Northrup, and it's just hilarious. It's not hilarious, but it's so typical. Okay, so yeah, all right, I'm gonna let you listen to some of this. I'll break in a couple times. Please leave me your comments. This is what hot reading looks like when Thomas John does it. And you'll hear Suzanne breaking in, and she is cold reading, trying to be relevant, trying so hard to stay relevant. All right, here we go. Oops, I should probably turn on the volume of the video.
Okay.
You can do something now, Thomas.
Okay, great. So I'm bringing through, there is a gentleman in spirit coming through that passed young. I'm getting, when I say young, I want to go more into the 40s to 50s with this gentleman. I get a very abrupt passing with him. And I do feel something within the heart. So I feel like he would have had heart issues or heart problems. Again, I don't want to say necessarily problems because it was such a sudden thing, but there is something definitely with the heart is what I'm feeling with him. And 40s to 50s. I'm also feeling when I connect to him, he seems to me as I connect to him that he's a very loud energy. So he would have been definitely a very intense person. I get the feeling that he was kind of definitely like a sort of I feel like a larger than life type of man when I feel him. And he does tell me also he left children behind. So, and I don't know what the connection is to the children, but he does want to talk about the children. I feel like, I don't know, well, they're his children. I don't know what the connection is with you with his children, but he feels that he wants, I definitely am feeling that he definitely wants to talk about this. He's also telling me when I connect on him that part of the reason why he's coming through is he feels that you've been going through a lot lately and you've been very, very stressed, dealing with a lot of problems. I also know, and so it's kind of like he's given me the feeling, to be honest with you, that the walls have been caving in a little bit around you. So you've been dealing with just a lot of things going on. There's just sort of a lot of stress around you. I also know somehow Kentucky would be significant. So somehow the state of Kentucky is very important that he would be bringing up. So this would either be present or with him. I don't really know what it is, but he's bringing that up very strongly.
So do you have a name connected to him, Thomas?
No, I'm not. Oh, somebody.
Well, I'm hearing a male with an S name, like a Sam, like a Sydney, like a Saul, some like that. I don't know if that's his name or who he's coming connected to, but it's a very strong S sounding name.
Okay, so you can hear Suzanne, and everything that Thomas John has said sounds specific-ish. Why doesn't he just, if he's hot reading, why doesn't he just want to give the person's name? Because he knows the name. But he doesn't, because then it's going to look like he's hot reading. And so this is just his style. So, and Suzanne trying so hard to stay relevant, She interjects. He uses her because she has a reputation. She's also one of these people tested by Gary Schwartz, Dr. Gary Schwartz from the University of Arizona. So, and she did a bunch of TV. Thomas Don also has had 2 TV shows and a Vegas career. And his career only in Vegas lasted January to April because COVID happened and he was shut down. He couldn't keep seats in there. People, they were giving away the tickets free. The place was half full. And it was like, oh God, it's been a while, maybe 100 people in the room. Anyway, I've got lots of videos on Thomas John if you want to know the backstory of him. I sent people in to go to his events in Vegas, and I have recordings of all that. So as you can see, it seems vague. He doesn't call on the person specifically. As I said, he's trying to get the person who he wants to come through. He's already done some research on to volunteer themselves. It'll make it seem more psychic, I guess, you know. But yeah, he knows exactly who he's calling on already. Now watch what happens here. Sorry about all the blur, you guys, but you know, I don't want you to see, but what you can kind of see movement on the screen, and that's because people are popping in and out, and you know, they're moving. And then these are all live thumbnails, so they're all jiggling and moving as they go about their day, sitting there listening to this event or wandering around the house or whatever. So that's what you're seeing is a slight movement. And as I said, I didn't have the skills I had then, and I cannot find the full video, so I can make it a little more interesting. But sorry.
Okay, this lady.
But it sounds more open. It doesn't sound like Steve or Stan. It sounds like a more S name, and that's either him or who he's coming through with. So I'm trying to look for this person here.
And this lady is saying it's Jackie. It's Jackie.
Yeah, there's a few people writing in the chat.
Okay.
Can we bring up Jackie, please?
Sure.
There's a SIG.
I got kind of pulled into her energy. Jackie, are you there?
Yes. I'm muting.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Jackie. For some reason, when they were saying stuff, I kind of got like a sense with you. So, do you connect to any of this stuff?
Yes, my dad died at age 47.
Okay. And then did he have the heart issue?
No, it was very, very sudden.
Okay. But did he pass from a heart attack or something in the heart?
Nope.
Well, then I don't think I can take it with you. But let me just ask you one thing. Do you have the other stuff? Do you have the Kentucky? Do you have the...
I do not.
Oh, then
Okay.
no, definitely
Nothing in Kentucky either.
not. No.
Okay,
that's
so-
not for you, yeah.
You know what?
There's
There
a
was
Cindy.
Could be Cindy.
There
She's
were-
saying they just moved to Kentucky.
Well,
and
this lady,
that's
Brenda,
earlier.
just said that her dad died in age 45 in Kentucky.
You want Brenda?
Yeah, because I definitely am getting more that this would be, as I'm tuning in, I feel like this is somebody's father. At first, I thought it was somebody's husband, but I'm like, no, I think this is actually somebody's dad in spirit.
he just
So,
passed young. So
He
are we
passed.
on Brenda here? Because
yeah, I think we're with Brenda. Brenda, can you come off?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Brenda. So what do you connect to that? You have Kentucky?
Yes, my father died of a heart attack. He was 45.
Okay, perfect. And what is the Kentucky connection? Because he is bringing me into Kentucky. He's talking about Kentucky. So is there something?
I was born and raised in Kentucky. I live in Texas now.
Okay.
I was 7.
Brenda,
died.
can I ask you, because I'm hearing this really strongly, somebody just told me in spirit that you're a widow.
Yes, I am.
So that just there's another connection coming through, but it's actually interesting. Your father is the one that's coming through. He's actually the one that's coming in right now, and he's actually the one that I know you want to hear from your husband, but actually what's happening is your father is coming through because he's telling me that he doesn't a lot of times get a chance to connect to you the way that so it's kind of is like he is coming through. Okay, I just need to say that there's a connection with both of them. Do you understand also who was very connected to the outdoors? They did a lot of things with the outdoors. They were very much an outdoor type of person. Do you understand that, Brenda?
Yes, my husband.
Okay, because I have to say I'm going into the outdoors. I feel like I need to talk about being in the outdoors, and I keep getting a very strong thing about this. And I also want to say, Brenda, as I'm with you, your husband in spirit is now coming through, and he's telling me that he's around the little boy with the crystal blue eyes. Whoever the little boy is, he's watching over the little boy, not in the spirit world, a young man, let's say, but there's a young boy with beautiful blue eyes that your husband would either know or be connected to. Who is this, please?
That's still living
Yes,
here.
still living. Yes.
Well, it could be my grandsons. They have beautiful blue eyes.
Okay, so that might be what he's bringing through then. I think that could definitely, I mean, that makes sense then. I also want to know too, who is connected to, because this keeps coming through. Well, actually, I want to say with you, because it's two things coming through. It's like your daddy's here, but also your husband. I'm going back and forth and back and forth. And they're talking about that you've made the right decision about where to settle down. So I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if are you settling down somewhere? Did you think you were going somewhere and did you end up going somewhere else? I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, I'm pretty settled here, but something you mentioned before about going through a lot of stress and stuff, immediately that hit me.
Okay. I want to tell you also, because they're coming through with this, they want you to know that your son is in spirit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they are telling me if you could please tell the two little boys that and I think that's why the boys got brought up, because they said your son is in the spirit world and he's okay. These two men, your husband and your father, are taking care of him, because I feel that he passed. There was a lot of, it was very sudden when your son passed. Do you understand that, Brenda?
Of course I do. He died of a drug overdose.
Yeah, because I'm hearing very strongly that there was a very sudden passing. Nobody got to say goodbye. It was kind of just like he was, there was no answer to that at all. And I just want to tell you, he is telling me that you did everything possible for him. He really feels like you helped him so much. And I know that there's a feeling of, did you do enough? Should you have done more? But he really wants to tell you, your son, as he kind of comes through, that he feels like you. Can I ask you, Brenda, did you pay for the rehabs, or did you give him money to, something about you helped him with the rehabs or something? Do you understand that?
We couldn't get him into rehab. I paid for lawyer fees and stuff, but not rehab.
Can I ask you, because I'm hearing about this, is there anything that I would be hearing about where he would talk about leaving behind siblings? Did he leave behind siblings?
I'm raising his two grandsons.
I know that, honey, but did your son leave behind siblings? Did he leave behind his own siblings?
Or siblings. I'm sorry, you just blown me away with everything you're telling me. That I can't even think straight.
Are there siblings? Did he have siblings?
He has two siblings left here on Earth.
He has two siblings left here on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask you, who died 6 years ago?
My son.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting. And there's one of his siblings that I just want to tell you, this is not to scare you. He's a little concerned about one of his siblings. So I don't know who's somebody's kind of struggling right now with something. I don't know if that would make sense to you, but I feel like they're struggling. They're having some issues, and he wants you to know that he's helping with that. Would that make sense to you?
Yes, he has identical twin brothers, and one of them is struggling right now.
All right, so I just want to intervene because this is long, and let's talk about this. And I hope that you're making comments on underneath this video. I really do. A lot of you have never heard anything about Thomas John because you're new to my channel and you're not following. You haven't followed the history I have had with Thomas John over the years. So this is all kind of new, especially if you've been following the cold reader, Matt Frazier, because that's really who I've been focusing on a lot. So you see the callousness of Thomas John when she says, what was it? I wanted to make a note, but I wasn't, didn't want to make a note. Where he says to her, because I thought I'd remember it. he says, "Is this your husband? Is this the one who died?" And she says, "That's my husband," or "That's my dad," or whatever. And he's like, "Okay, good." It's just so like, yay, we're on the right track. I've got the right person after all. And then he goes on, and you can hear the increasing emotion in Brenda's voice, and it's going to get worse. And there's more. So, and more will come out in a few minutes. So what happens is that he's just continuing telling the story a little bit more as they go. And she's filling in a lot of these details, and you're hearing more and more emotion. So her father's here, and then her husband's here, and then her son is here. Now, I don't think, and Matt, Thomas isn't going to give names. I don't believe so. He knows their names. We're watching this. We know their names, but I don't think Thomas is going to do it because it's a little too much. People like, who's this guy in the UK I've been following, Psychic Medium Dean, and there's one in who goes and gives like names and dates of death and dates of birthdays. Thomas John has this information too. It's not hard to find. If I gave you her name, you guys probably within 5 minutes could find this information. It really isn't that hard. Obituaries, she's got 3, and then the her social media, because she's obviously grieving. She is raising her 2 grandsons that were her son's children, and that he died of a drug overdose, and she was involved in helping out and on, financially trying to get him well. Gosh, lots of people have sons that have died in overdoses in the world that I've seen in the psychic medium world. It's really sad. But then the mediums also know that that's a typical thing. Their child usually dies young, and they really want to make sure they're okay, because they've spent so much of their life trying to make sure their child, usually the son, is okay. So they're reaching out to him. It's very, very sad. Kind of like after a war, World War I, World War II, when spiritualism just really surged because their son went off to war. They didn't really get to say goodbye. And is he okay now? Because he had gone through so much. So it's just crushing what's been happening in this world of mediumship lately. And as I said, the mediums know this already. Okay, what else was I going to tell you? Hopefully you guys are making notes. So we're increasingly seeing it escalating with Thomas John. He has all this information. He could easily have this written down in notes beside him where we wouldn't even see it, that he was taking notes as he went through for the 10 minutes that Suzanne was talking to the previous person. He could do that, or to be honest with you, it's all just easy to remember. It's not that detailed. He's giving just kind of, generic stuff. He knows where he's going to go. Father, husband, son, and the blue-eyed children too. This is fascinating. So I've been on her social media page, and she does have some photos of children that are, I'm not going to show them to you because they're not her children or her grandchildren. They're these kind of AI-ish. I don't think we had AI as much in 2020 or 2021. Not as commonly as we have now in 2026. But she had these photos of children that have these glowing blue eyes. I mean, bluer than my screen right here. It was like blue. So it was, they're just photos of children who they've pushed the saturation point on the pictures, and she had posted those on her Facebook page. So I think that's where that's where Thomas John, I got Matt on the brain. That's where Thomas John got those pictures. Her grandchildren probably have blue eyes, but the pictures that are focused on her Facebook page, big old pictures, are of babies that have these glowing blue eyes. More like the blue in the background of that photo right there, if you guys can see that. It's very, but glowy. So we're coming along on the story, and it's going to get worse. All right. So we're halfway through the reading. Let's see if I don't interrupt it again. Maybe we're okay. Let's see. Sorry, it's gotten all blurry now because Susan didn't know what she was doing back then. I was so worried about covering us all up so nobody could see that I probably covered it up a little too much.
That's what he's talking about. I want to tell you also, he wants to tell you, Brenda, that he's at peace in a way that he was not here in the physical world, because he's telling me that the reason that he got involved with some of the substance stuff is there were certain things that he went through that he had to block out. I feel like he might have actually had some PTSD. And he is telling me that this is a way that he was a coping thing for him. Okay. So I just want to know in spirit though, he is okay. Okay. He is okay. And he's with Connor. You know who that is?
It's his dog.
Okay. Is
Oh my
Connor,
God.
did
Oh my
Connor
God, I
go,
can't believe you.
did the dog pass?
We don't know because we lost track of him after the funeral. He
That's
went with
okay, honey.
another
I
funeral.
believe that he's gone to spirit then, and your son would be connected to him. And your son is telling me, he says Dan's best friend. So I think he was very close to the dog.
Oh, he was his traveling buddy.
Yeah, so he's bringing that up. But I know that they're all together over there. And I know that it's the three levels of them all coming through together. Your husband, your son, your father, and they're all together over there. And they're telling me, I want to just go back to this. I know you didn't understand this, but they're talking about being happy about where you settled down. So I don't know if you were thinking of moving. I don't know if you moved after they died, but there's something where they feel like you're good where you're at right now. Okay? Does that make sense to you at all?
Not really, because I never had any plans to move. I've lived here for 40 years, but
Okay.
maybe
So
it's more of a settling in my heart, in my spirit.
yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know exactly, I'm not getting more with that. I mean, they're not elaborating on that, but I feel like I am hearing about that. And do you have somebody's cowboy hat?
Yes, I have my husband's cowboy hat.
Okay, somebody just said you have the cowboy hat, and
Oh my God.
yeah.
Do you know how much this means to me? I couldn't get on the link. I was 30 minutes late getting on. And thank you, Tracy. And I told her in an email right before I talked to you that I had this feeling that my family needed to talk to me and it would be the
Good.
greast Christmas present ever. And you
That
have
was,
just
that was Stephanie. Stephanie's good at that.
Oh,
Yes.
Stephanie. Oh,
Tracy helped too. Yes,
Okay.
It was
So
a group effort.
I have to tell you one other quick thing here, though, Brenda. I don't know why, is that they're still talking about Sam or something. So there must have been a Sam that knew your dad or knew your son. It's like Sam saw whatever it is, and it's a male that he knew. And I believe your son knew this guy. And I believe it must have been
my son or my husband.
one of them knew them. One of them knew this man's name. Like I feel like they hung around together, like they were buddies.
That I don't know. The only Sam I've ever heard mentioned is the photographer who took our wedding pictures. That's the only Sam I've ever heard of.
Okay,
But then
so
my husband was in the military, so maybe he knew someone that I don't know.
I want to say that I believe it's your husband acknowledging your connection with each other. If this is the person that took your wedding pictures, he said you would know this guy. He said you would know of this guy because that must have been like a very important deal. And he's talking, it's what he's honoring your relationship is basically kind of what he's doing. But I know he brought him in, and it's interesting because he brought him in with the big hat like they wear in Texas.
Oh
So-
my gosh.
So
Oh my gosh.
go breathe, Brenda.
Oh my gosh, you have made my Christmas and I can't wait to tell my little grandsons.
Oh,
Can I
good.
ask Thomas one more thing?
Yes.
We have worried that we don't know if he committed suicide or if it was just an accidental overdose.
Who?
His
Did he
son.
say anything about that?
Your son?
Yes.
When I'm connecting with spirit, for me, sometimes both of those feel very similar to me because it still is their action. I feel more overdose. I think what I'm getting is that there was maybe some confusion because he was kind of a little bit having some issues and depressed and stuff. But it seems like in the moment that I'm getting that this is more overdose. I'm hearing that it's more that's what I keep hearing is I feel like it's overdose.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I want to say is what I think honestly is more important, Brenda, is that what Thomas talked about, how you went through hoops to try to help him in the process, and you feel like you failed him and you didn't fail him. And I feel like that's why it's more important that you know that than actually how he left his body. Because he's not in that place anymore. That's what he wants you to know. So I always try to tell people, if they're saying don't focus on it, that's not what she wants you to focus on.
Right.
He wants you to focus on taking care of these little boys and his connection with them. And I think that's why your husband's coming through so strong, letting you know that the love is connection of him being around you during this. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and this means so much to me. I have waited. Well, my husband died in 2003, so I've waited 17 years to hear from him, and 6 years to hear from my son. And this is what I needed to be able to move on with my life and be happy.
That's great. That's
Okay,
great. And that's what he
why we
wants.
do this work for sure. So,
Oh, Thomas,
Okay.
thank you so much. You've given me the greatest Christmas gift anyone could ever give me.
oh, great, honey. Bless you.
Well, that's what it is with love. You can't put a number on love. That's the whole deal.
I just knew. I
So-
knew if I didn't get on, I just had this feeling that they wanted to talk to me. I mean, I've done a lot of sessions with you, Thomas, and I enjoyed hearing about other people's, hearing from their loved ones. And something just told me when I couldn't get on the link, I'm like, what if they need to talk to me tonight? Tonight is the night. I just feel it. And
Good.
within 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I'm just so blessed. Thank
There
you.
go. All right, honey. Many blessings.
Okay. So
Thank you
so
for
so I found her. I found her, Thomas. So
Right.
I found her. So maybe it's your turn to find somebody.
Okay.
Um,
I will go. So yeah, so we had that one. So I'll do another one. So, okay.
because I have a one if you don't, but go ahead.
No, I'll do this lady. So there's a lady that I'm getting in the spirit world that's come through. And when I connect to this woman, I have to tell you, with love, I don't feel.
All right, so we'll end that. All right, quite a lot, right? Very emotional. So while I was listening to the second half, I said to myself, oh, I forgot I don't have a copy of the obituary handy right now because I didn't see it in my notes. As I said, this is old, done a lot of investigations. They blend together in a lot of ways. I mean, I do keep track of these things, but there's so many. So I said, I better go pull up this woman's obituary, the obituary that I found that has all this information. I said, oh, well, I've only got a minute or two because I did this right before I just clicked on I'm done. And that's how easy it is to find it. I just put a first, last name, quotes around a first and last name. I didn't even put the word obituary or anything. And boom, here it is, the obituary. I'm sitting here. I'm not going to show it to you because it would reveal who she is. But the son was 33 and has his birthday, his death day, preceded in death by his father, who was a founding father in the military. He's survived by his fiance, his mother, Brenda, her last name, his siblings, and his children, and it names the children. He's a loving person. He enjoyed the simple things in life, including his pal Connor, which was the family dog. Okay. And it goes on and lists, the information of where to go to the funeral and things like that. And I'm looking to see if there's any posts. Sometimes there are, comments from family and friends or people who he worked with. I don't see anything on here. But sometimes there are, and it makes it easier. So this was just a minute or so for me to look for. Looks like there's something. Oh, no, it says be the first to leave a comment. Okay, so there it is. I've made screenshots of it, so now I have it in my records. And then I also went to Google again and then put in Brenda, her last name, in the quotes around her name, and it pulled up her LinkedIn, her Facebook. I think this is her husband. Let me see. Is this him? I remember I'd seen it before. This is her dad. He was 88. Has has her husband's name. Pretty sure this is him. Anyway, it's not, I mean, if I spent a couple more minutes longer, I would find all of these things. So let me look on this one. Is this him? Because on Brenda's Facebook page, as I said, my team is watching this. We're going, oh wow, I wonder if he's going to mention this, and I wonder if he's going to mention that, because we're looking at it in real time. It's a 17-minute reading. We could see what was happening. And of course, there it is on her Facebook page. And there is photos of her husband wearing a cowboy hat. And let me tell you guys, these personal items like jewelry, rings, necklaces, and certain kinds of clothing like a hat or a jacket or certain things specially worn intimately next to their skin kind of things, widows or parents are unlikely to get rid of those things. They still tend to sometimes smell like the person, or they have a lot of sentimental feeling for them. So they're unlikely to get rid of them. So her continuing to have the cowboy hat in her house is very likely. It's very common. So when he mentioned the cowboy hat, it was on her Facebook page, the picture of the guy with the cowboy hat. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's there. So we were just like, wow, that was really sad. That poor lady. But did you hear some of the other things she said? Well, she gave a lot of information herself about what happens and how she's raising her children and how her son died of a drug addiction and how she didn't know if he died by suicide or if he died purposefully. And Thomas John tried to kind of change it, and say, oh, well, it was an accident. We don't want you to feel so bad. You're already crying and everything. But I've seen him say some really awful things to people, including that there was other people involved and the other people and they were involved in the death and I have some of these on videos in the Thomas John playlist where he'll say, and their name, and then the sitter will go, was it John? And he's like, if that's who you think it is, that's who I think it is too, So now here's this random John person who's going to be blamed for the death of their child. And then another one where Thomas John was saying that the woman's brother had died as a veteran in a facility like a VA hospital. And he says they're culpable. They were involved in his death. And she says, well, they won't do an autopsy and I can't pay for it. I can't afford it. And he's like, well, that's why they don't want you to know, because they were responsible. I knew it. I had a feeling something like that was going on and they wouldn't, you know what I mean? So he's involving this random hospital, this VA hospital. And now the sister's in even more grief than she was, because now she thinks that somebody was responsible for her brother's death. And in the other case, somebody was responsible for her son's death, and she thinks she knows who he is. It's pretty awful out there. These grief vampires are pretty darn, they have no ethics. They're just not good people. And I say this all the time, and I'm going to go on a tiny tangent because this happens so much, where people go to people like Teresa Caputo, John Edward, Matt Frazier, Tyler Henry, and they say, oh, it's all fun and games. They're helping people. But what you're missing, everybody's missing, is that these mediums do very few personal, I buy a reading from you. In fact, they almost never do. If you get a reading from them, it's like winning a lottery. You're not ever going to get a reading from this person again. So what it does, if you watch these readings, if you go and you see Teresa Caputo and Teresa Caputo and Tyler Henry and all these celebrity psychics, and you're watching it and you believe in this, or you've had a reading by them and it feels very genuine, but you didn't get all your answers, you will never, ever get another reading by that person. The odds are so highly impossible for you to get the reading again, because there's thousands of people that are at these events over time, and they just pick out a few people out of the audience or out of the Zoom. So it's really hard to get a reading with these celebrity people. And if you're watching it and it just seems like, oh, these people they're being helped, I'm crying and it feels good. If they just walked away and never had anything else to do with mediums, and only just watched the people on TV, it's not that harmful. Okay, I know that's hard to say for me. I mean, it's BS. So are these ghost shows, ghost hunting shows, finding Bigfoot, the space aliens. It's all nonsense. But if you just kind of go, all right, they're finding Bigfoot again. Haha, they didn't find Bigfoot again. And then I go to work and everything's fine. What happens in some cases is that these people are in such grief, they just need to know so badly, like this Brenda person who said she's gone to many of Thomas John's readings, and that she's waited 17 years to hear from her husband, and she's just such a wreck right now. It's Christmas time. Her husband, her father, her parents, and her son are all dead, and she's alone with these two grandkids. So what happens is they reach out to more available psychics like Thomas John, that you're more likely to be able to get a reading from him, and his ilk, like Suzanne and all these other people. And when you get readings from those kind of people, what you've entered a different world than the John Edwards, the Teresa Caputos, the names, those famousy people. Now you're in a world where they're going to try to suck you into their world, to come back regularly, to buy their books, to do their workshops. You possibly yourself are a healer or a psychic yourself, and you should take mediumship classes with me, all, of course, at a cost. You should buy my Patreon. You should buy my, donate to this thing, and you should go to seminars. Thomas John does, you can go on a cruise and hang out with him on the cruise. And they have other money-making areas that they're trying to pull you into. Some of these mediums, not Thomas John, but some people, they also sell supplements, and they give medical advice and other kinds of things. I remember some of them were selling like water bottles and masks and candles. I think Thomas John also has candles. You can buy prayer candles. You can buy calendars, all kinds of stuff. T-shirts, of course, swag, but that's not so weird. I sell T-shirts. I've sold like 3 this year, 2025. Wow. Making big bucks here, Susan Gerbic. So what happens, you get pulled into this world, and it's a different world where they do prey on you, also give financial and medical advice, as Thomas John started to do with this other family member that was a brother of her husband, and things aren't quite right with him and so on. If you listen to enough of these and you listen to my videos, you will start seeing financial advice and medical advice. And if it isn't direct medical advice, like you have a problem in your intestines, or your left foot is giving you problems, it's not that. That's not the problem. The problem is that you feel like you've just gotten a look over evaluation by the great Thomas John, this psychic medium to the stars, and people love him, and he's always right. He's so amazing. Look at all these people who say he's right, and da, da, da. And I can forego my yearly mammogram or my colonoscopy or my going and get my heart checked. I can give it a pass. I can probably leave off of that other medication that I'm not taking. I thought I'd stop taking it because it makes me dizzy. or whatever, because Thomas John said the only thing that's wrong with me is my leg. So they feel like they've had a once over. I see this a bunch of times. There's all kinds of mediums out there who do this intuitive, medical stuff. So when they say, I see this problem with you, your lower back's bothering you, what they're saying is the only thing I see wrong is your lower back. Everything else is good. And so people postpone their checkups and their doctor visits and stuff like that, because who really wants to go to the doctor, right? Who really wants to, they would, get their mammogram or a colonoscopy. I mean, really? Prostate check, seriously? They want to say, oh, I'm good. Oh, I thought my blood pressure wasn't doing so good this, I didn't think my blood pressure was great. I haven't been getting a lot of exercise. I've been more winded lately. Yeah, I've been having to rest a lot, but Thomas John says the only thing wrong with me is my leg. So I guess I'm fine. I won't, I'll move my appointment in 6 months, that I was going to go have. Okay. So I digress, but I'm only doing that because nobody talks about this. I think I'm the only person who mentions it, and I have such low viewership. I need to make sure people get something out of this and understand there's super harm in this. Okay. I said there was more. A lot more. Sorry, you guys, this video is taking a little bit, but some people like longer format videos. So she admits that she was having trouble getting onto the Zoom. So she reached out to somebody there and said, could you help me? I'm having trouble logging on. And the person had a conversation with her. I don't remember if it's Stephanie or if it was Tracy. Tracy was Thomas John's right-hand person for a long time. And I think Stephanie was the sister who was on the call. So she has a conversation with them. And she tells Stephanie, or tells the woman, that she really needs to get on there because she feels like she's in a very bad place and she needs to get in contact. They really want to contact her. This is really important. So she's on for 15 minutes on this like hour plus call, and he calls on her. So, if you want to be one of those people who says, well, it's just a coincidence. Oh no, that ain't no coincidence. Somebody's just saying, hey, this is a live one. You got to check this one out. I think it would be more likely Stephanie, because is that her name? Whatever. Because I think if it's a sister, I think she's in on it. She knows. I don't think Tracy would do that, because Tracy's a true believer. So, she comes to his attention. She pulls up on screen and ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. Maybe he just randomly saw her name came up and said, I'm gonna look this one up. She's got a nice Googleable name, and look, her grief is all over the place. And she's an older woman, so she's probably had a lot of grief in her life, as opposed to a 30-year-old who probably hasn't had that much. But a person in her 70s is going to have a lot more death, probably her parents and her grandparents, and maybe a child, probably a sibling, and so on. And if it's a woman in her 70s, maybe her husband. You see what I'm saying? The odds are higher that she's a good one to do. All right, so she admits that herself. Okay, now here comes the amazing parts. Let me get rid of this so I can pull this over here. I don't want to show you this because it'll reveal who she is. So about 3 days after we watched this, and we all were like, oh yeah, we're recording everything. And we're like, wow, look at this person, look at that person. I get an email from Brenda. And Brenda tells me, I had a reading with Thomas John on December, blah, 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 and whatever year it was. And my father, my husband, and my son came through, and it was like the best Christmas present ever. I was just amazed. It was amazing. It was I cried. And then she says, and then after a day, I started to get like a feeling that maybe something was wrong. I wanted to know how much Thomas John makes for a living. I want to know his finances. She said it's just something about that. She wanted to Google it. So she Googled Thomas John and she came up with one of my articles. And I've written a lot of articles for Skeptical Inquirer about Thomas John over the years. And she found one of my articles, which led to another article, which led to another article and explained hot reading. So Brenda said she was devastated. She was just devastated at what had happened to her, because then she went and looked at her social media and saw that it was there. And then she did a Google of her son's obituary, and there's all that information. And she realized what had happened, and she was devastated. She said she cried for 3 days. So maybe it was the fourth day she contacted me. She said she cried for 3 days. She was just so humiliated that she had done this. So been taken in so easily. She felt just like she was silly and stupid for falling for this. Just heartbreaking. So she's telling me this by email, and I'm trying to calm her down by saying, no, he's very clever. You're in an emotional state. It is Christmas time, and there's a lot of emotions going on. You're alone. You're trying to raise these grandkids. So then she tells me a lot of other personal stuff. Now, I don't want to get into it too much, but let's just say Brenda's got health issues. And some of the health issues she's had in the last 10 years make it so that not always her judgment is the best. So she might have been very sharp years ago, but in the last 10 years, she has not had the best critical thinking skills, and she admits that because of her health issues. And she's raising young grandchildren who are under 13, and she's a woman in her 60s or 70s. I can't remember. I think 70s. That's a lot of work too. And no, I don't think anybody else was taking on the responsibilities for these grandkids. And it was COVID time, so it's extra stressful. You got to get your grandkids on Zoom so they can do the lessons or whatever software it is, so that they can do their schoolwork because they're not able to go to school. That's stressful enough. Having them home all the time, worrying about them. That's very stressful. I can't even imagine. Also, Brenda has a belief in mediumship and psychics. And she told me a couple stories. I mean, we had a lot of email exchanges back and forth. And she told me a bunch of stories that I just let slide because to me it was obvious the answer, but she used it to believe that this is real. One of them was she was at a doctor's office and she was talking to a nice woman that was sitting next to her. And then she turned away and was talking to somebody else, and then she turned back and the person was gone. So she believed she was an angel. And another time she was walking near on a beach that had like a carnival, where you go and you play games and stuff. You throw coins and hoops and hit things and you win prizes. And she had her grandchildren with her. And as they were walking on the beach, the boardwalk is right near them, she found 2 little stuffed animals that were blue. And she said those were given to her by her son. He sent them to her for his children, his children, her grandchildren. And I didn't say much. I think I said, well, wasn't there like a carnival thing there where they win prizes and small stuffed animals is common? She goes, nobody had those. She went and looked. And I'm thinking, right, you really looked really carefully at all these stuffed animals and saw if they were prizes. Of course not. I mean, it could even been one of those machines where the arm comes up and they go down and they grab a toy and they, and somebody just dropped them out of their pocket or who knows what. But she believed that those were sent by her son from heaven to give to the grandsons. And I'm like, okay, right, okay, it gives you peace, but she really believed it. So she'd already been in this mindset, and I wasn't going to be able to say anything. I can't. It's not like anybody's going to believe me. I mean, you look on the comments on my videos and how much time I'm called who knows what, not nice things. And it's not nice being the skeptic in the room. Trust me. You're not invited to parties. Really, no, it's not a popular thing to be. And by saying and making her feel even sillier by saying, no, it was just, you turned your back, and maybe she got up and left, and you just weren't thinking, you just lost track of time. It felt like 30 seconds. It was actually 2 minutes, and the person got up and walked out or went into their appointment, or, so it doesn't help for me to give them answers. I'm just rather go, interesting story, very interesting, but you can see their mindset. Also, in Brenda's case, she was worried that she would lose custody of these grandsons if it came out that she had fallen for something that was a kind of a scam. In her mind, this is what she's thinking. She told me repeatedly, and I'm looking at my notes, that she wanted to expose Thomas John. She was so angry. I could use her video. I could show her name and her face. She'd be happy to do an interview. And I said, I'm not so sure that this is a good idea, because she seemed very upset, very emotional. And because of her health issues, I didn't feel that her consent was a great consent. So that's why I'm being very vague, and I am not using any names or showing anything. Over time, she told, because we did work with a reporter, there was a reporter who I was working with who really wanted to hear a story from somebody like this. And let me tell you, I get that all the time from reporters. They want to interview a believer who's changed their mind. But people who have had this happen, these kinds of things happen to them, they absolutely do not want to be interviewed. They might say it at first because they're so mad, but then they do not. I've invited them onto my channel multiple times, and I tell them, I'll change your voice, I'll change your, I'll blur you out. No, no, no. I've had at least 2 women who were furious at Thomas John, and then they said they would come onto my YouTube channel and do a video, and then they told her husband, and the husband said, absolutely not. You are done with this. You get your refund from Thomas John, or you don't get the refund from Thomas John. You're having nothing to do with this anymore. And I'm like, okay, your husband tells you no, so you do know you're not going to do it, right? Okay, that's their marriage. So they know the wife better than I do. So Brenda made the decision she didn't want to talk to a reporter after a while, because what was happening is when she revisited the story, or she re-listened to the video, because Thomas John gave them the video after the reading. We always got a copy of the reading. I would make a copy during the reading, and then he'd also email it to me, because I paid my $27 or whatever it was. So he'd send me a recording. He's sending it to Susan Gerbic. Even if I'm not using that name on that email, what a dork, your psychic powers have just failed you. You're sending it to me, and the money I'm using is coming from an account that the great psychic buster James the Amazing Randi gave me. I mean, what a dork. I mean, come on. So Brenda said she would rewatch her video where she did the reading with Thomas John, the one that I just gave you the listen to. And she said, I just break down in tears, and I'm just a mess the rest of the day. I just kind of said, I'm not going to have you talk to reporters, because this is just unhealthy, really unhealthy. And the only reason I'm telling you this now is because I'm being very vague. I haven't heard from Brenda in a very long time. I've reached out to her many times. She's silent on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and I'm hoping she's doing really well, but I don't think so. I mean, I can see her Facebook posts, and they're so rare, and nothing's happened for a very long time. I'm just worried she's not well at all. And we did correspond a lot by email, and she kept making very bad decisions, impulsive decisions, because of her health issues. And what she would do is she would get really mad and she'd send an email to Thomas John, and then she would CC me or CC me. So he knew he was talking to me. Or she would write to me and say, this guy, he did this thing and he makes me so mad. And he did that. And I'm still getting advertisements for him. He wants me to get more readings, which Thomas John does almost every day. I think my inbox fills up with a new reading every day, a request to do a reading advertisement. And she says, I'm so mad. But what she would do is she's sending it to me, but she would also include Thomas John and his people on the same email. And then they would email her back, and they were mean. They would say stuff to her that was really mean. How dare you? And threatening her. And so she got scared. And another time she sent an email to her son, another son, about what had happened. And she CC'd Thomas John again. So he would obviously knew what was going on, and he was very upset at her, and he was not kind. And so I told her, I said, don't email me. You have nothing to do with email, because obviously she keeps making this hitting reply all or whatever she was forwarding. I don't know what she's doing, but it was pretty ugly. So I said, the only way I want to talk to you is on Facebook Messenger, because at least that way I know you're not forwarding the wrong thing. And she's giving me these links to stuff of Thomas John saying, hey, get a reading from me. It's only $30 this week or whatever. I'm getting the same email. So she's not sending me anything I don't already know. And I was following Thomas John pretty darn closely. So here, let me look and see if I see any messages. Yeah, the last time I was able to talk to her it's been a while, and she hasn't responded. So I don't know if she's doing well. I have no idea. Very sad for her. Very, very sad. But at least she realized what was going on and didn't go back to Thomas John, and hopefully avoided other psychics. She told me that the money that she spent was 20 something dollars. And she says, I'm on an income of $1,500 a month. I own my house, but I have almost no income. And she had to pay off her son's college loans, which was an astronomical amount of money. And she was raising these grandsons. And I don't think there was any money coming in for them. Maybe there was somewhere, but she told me that she was making like $1,500 a month. She's unable to work. And that $27 was a big deal to her. And she'd done this multiple times with Thomas John. So it's been a while. I wanted to tell the story. Thank you, William, for making me remember this story. And as I said, I've got screenshots, but I don't want to show you screenshots because I think just telling you the story and letting you hear her emotion and understand where I'm coming from and why I do this every day practically, and why I want other people to care, because this might not be the worst pseudoscience harmful thing people can do, but to some people it is really devastating. Not only does it mess with your memory of your loved one, because they're telling you your loved one says this thing and your loved one's apologizing and all that. Not only does it mess with your memories of them, but it interrupts your time of grief. You're not able to completely finish or go through the cycles to a point where you're living your life and you're moving on with whatever it is that you got to do. Grief is always there, but at a certain point when you're constantly revisiting this. I have to have a reading for my husband. I really got to do this. Oh my gosh, I got to hear from this person. I'm going to come back to you until I get a reading, and so on. And that's what happened last night on the video that William was talking to. Evelyn and I watched a Matt Fraser video, a reading, and the mother in there hears from her dad, but she clearly doesn't want to hear from her dad. He gets all the way to the end of the reading. She goes, I really want to hear from my husband. And he goes, oh, well, he's here, but your dad's been clogging it up, and you'll have to come back another time. She'd been, I think it was her 17th reading, trying to go to Matt Fraser to get a reading, 17th attempt. And she says, okay, well, I'll just keep coming back until my husband comes through. And he goes, yeah, no problem. Your husband will come through next time. This time your dad came through. Next time it'll be your husband. I just know that, even though he's here, but it'll be next time. And it was really hard to watch these things. Oh, seeing these people manipulated is just heartbreaking. All right, y'all. Please leave me comments, like and subscribe. Please share my videos, and give me a heads up. It's hard to be so hated as I am. And I'm trying to look out for people and trying to caution people. And yeah, I'm trying to educate, but I'm not allowing them to get away with it just because they say these people are helped. If Brenda hadn't Googled me and found my article, she would have probably, well, she was already kind of starting to get a little skeptical. But if I had never done anything, she might be leading a little happier life at this point. But then again, I have this feeling she would have been falling for a lot more stuff. Oh, final response. Many conversations, in the conversations I had with Brenda, she wanted me to recommend a medium that was real. Absolutely. I get that all the time. Oh, this one is a fraud. This one is conning people. This one is doing hot reading. This one's cold reading. Okay, Susan, so you're really, really good at this. You've followed so many psychic mediums. Which one should I go to get a real reading? Straight up, I get that question all the time. Can't even believe it. And I usually say, none of them, I've never seen any evidence that any of them had any kind of talent or any kind of skill or anything. So none of them. They're like, really? None? What? Oh, what about so-and-so? I heard they're good. And what about so-and-so? My friend recommended them. They're like, well, I don't really know who that person is, but and they're like, oh, well, maybe they're good. And you're like, oh, I can't. I can't. Anyway, sorry, this is a very overly long video. I have a lot of things I'm supposed to be doing today, but I'd much rather try to educate you guys and let you know what's going on. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys. Make it to the end. Please leave me comments. I do read every single one and try to respond to them all. Thank you all.